Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 4. And in today's episode we're going to start to use some of the information that we've learned so far, particularly from the identity video, and think about how we can actually apply this on a day-to-day basis. So how can we actually use this information in our lives practically? And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go through two different approaches that people use, and I'm going to ask you to think about which approach you're currently using. Okay, and then I'm going to talk through which of those two approaches generally tends to lead to you getting things done, getting you to achieve the goals that you want, and getting you to live sort of the life that you want, and then ask you to just reflect on that and see what changes could you make that might help you live the life that you want. Okay, so there's two types of decision-making flows. So the first one we're going to go through is a person thinks about how they're feeling. So they check in with their bodily responses and their bodily feelings, and they ask themselves, right, how am I feeling today? They then use these feelings to decide what type of behaviors they'll do, what type of actions will get done based on how I'm feeling. And then over time, those behaviors and those actions start to create an identity of that person. Okay, so they're checking in with their feelings, they're using their feelings to drive their behaviors, and their repeated behaviors lead to their identity. Okay, now the second decision-making flow is the person begins from a different point. So they start this process by going, right, what type of person do I want to be? And what type of person am I? So they initially start by thinking about their identity. So they're essentially going in at the high level of identity to think about who are they and who do they want to be. Based on who they want to be, they then think, what behaviors and actions are in alignment with the person I want to be. Okay, so they're using their identity to then decide what behaviors they do, and then the behaviors that they do then create certain feelings, and those feelings are in alignment with the type of person that they want to be. So can you see how they're quite different approaches here? So one person is using their feelings to then drive their behaviors to then create an identity, whereas the other person is starting at the identity level and then using that to determine what behaviors they do, and then those behaviors determine how they feel. And when we start at that identity level, so when we start to think about who do we want to be and what behaviors would I do, then that leads us to getting things done. It leads us, even if we're not quite feeling 100%, it leads us to making sure that we show up. We do the work because that's the type of thing that the person I want to be would do. And I'll ask you now to just reflect back on the last week, the last month, the last year even, and have a think about how often have you been using your feelings to drive your behaviors to then create your identity, compared to how often you've been thinking, right, this is who I am. This is the type of person I want to be. So I'm going to do these behaviors because those are in alignment, and those behaviors then create a certain lifestyle and create you to feel a certain way. Okay? So if you're struggling with an issue of some kind, depending on what context is in, how about just using that identity start point? Think about who it is you want to be, and you've also already created a bit of an image of that from our last episode. And then ask yourself what behaviors are in alignment with that, and then as you're doing those behaviors, you'll start to feel a difference in your body. So your physiology changes when you're accessing the type of person you want to be. And that gives you the wonderful benefit of actually doing the work and getting things done, and then having the feelings that you want to feel. Okay, so it's certainly a different way round of doing it. And again, I would like to emphasize neither of those are good or bad or right or wrong. It's just that starting at the identity level and then using that to drive behaviors and that to drive feelings is more likely to help you live the life you want, because you're starting to be the person you want to be. Okay, so more of a reflection exercise in today's episode, and then hopefully that will give you just enough inspiration so that when you wake up tomorrow morning, you start immediately at that identity level and see just what sort of changes that can create when you access the type of person you want to be. Okay, so really interesting one, that one. I hope you found it interesting as well. And that's all for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Okay, bye.